Let's go ahead and get started, you guys. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Sangju and Rosaline, is there anything that you guys wanted to start off with, or I can go ahead and get started with the workshop if you like.
You can start.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Accenture's second collaboration with PCDC on a series of workshops where we get real about college. On the first workshop, we explore if college is the right decision for you. And in this second workshop, we're going to talk about how we're going to pay for college tuition. But before we get started, let's meet the panelists. I'm Angela, your host. You may remember me from last time, and I've been with Accenture for 2 years. I'm now located in New York, but I did grow up around the Philly area, about 40 minutes outside of the city, so I'm no stranger to Philadelphia. I will pass the baton on to my other panelists. Jimmy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Jimmy. I went to school at the University of Maryland, grew up in New York, and I've been in the supply chain transportation industry for about 10 years. I've been with Accenture for about just over a month now, so new to the team, but really excited to be involved in this event. Just quick background, myself and my wife, we have some experience with applying for scholarships and working through college. So that's kind of the piece that I'll hopefully be able to assist with any questions on today. Thanks.
Katie.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie. I am kind of new to the Philly office. I was in the DC office for a bit, but I am a technical analyst, and I went to the University of Richmond. I graduated in 2020. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Katie. Serena.
Hi, my name is Serena, and I am an analyst out of the Philly office. I'm very new to Accenture. I just started in September. I just graduated in May of this year from the university, from UC Berkeley, and I grew up in upstate New York.
That's awesome. Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I am originally from Connecticut, but now I've relocated to the Philadelphia area. I have been with Accenture for coming up on 10 years, and I am a graduate of the College of New Rochelle and Quinnipiac University of Law.
Thank you, Nicole. And Choice won't be able to make it with us today, so we'll go ahead and get started. Let's see. On the agenda today, I, as your host, will spend 20 minutes to review the workshop content where I talk about steps to lower the cost of tuition, and we will also spend 10 minutes or so at the end for just open for Q&A. So let's get into it. So how did you pay for college? This is the first question that I have for the panelists, and I can go ahead and get started. Again, I grew up right outside of Philly, and I'm a first-generation student. I knew my parents didn't have a lot of money to kind of help pay with college. As you know, like college tuition is about $40,000 a year. Multiply by 4, that's 160, somewhere around that range, right? And that's a lot of money. So I knew that I needed help, like in some kind of way down along the line. And the good part is I did decent in school. So, I was able to get recognized for that, and I received a full ride to Tulane in New Orleans. Just having that full ride was really a huge help, as I still have to pay for room and board, books, living costs, etc. But those are a little bit more manageable than the college tuition. So I'll go ahead and pass the baton over to Jimmy.
Sure thing. So paying for my college, I was pretty fortunate. My family was in a position where they could help out with a lot of the costs, but it was still very important for me to search for scholarships, which I did from some local businesses. It was important for me during high school to take AP courses that helped me get credits that could transfer to my college. And that allowed me to take care of some of the basic requirements. You get a better pick of your schedule. So definitely I highly recommend if you have access to AP courses to take those, study hard. I believe when I took it, if you got a score of 3 or higher, you could get credit at certain institutions. And that really gave you first pick when you were choosing your courses at school, allowing you to choose courses you like and maybe reducing some of the costs there. So some were local scholarships. and that was kind of the methods I used. And you're on mute there, Angela.
Serena or Katie, do you guys have anything?
I can talk a bit about my experience. So I did go out of state since I'm from New York and I went to school in California, and I'm kind of in that boat where like my parents had like a little bit of money that they could help me with, but for the most part, I pretty much paid my own way through college. And so I would say in high school, like, I don't know if high schools are still using Naviance or whatever, but that was the main portal that my school used. And through there, I like applied for just a ton of scholarships my senior year, but mostly what helped me out was my school actually gave me a decent amount of financial aid for an out-of-state student. So that dropped the cost of my attendance a lot. And so I had like a combination of like federal loans, private loans, and like work study. And like I worked a few jobs during college. And I also graduated in 7 semesters instead of 8 because I took 1 semester off to work full time and save up some money in between. So kind of through a combination of things, I was able to fund my way through school.
And Serena, thank you for highlighting that you went to out of state. You guys remember on my first workshop, I did mention that, for state colleges, for out of state students. So for example, like somebody who's from New Jersey and they want to go to Penn State University, they would pay more than somebody who is from Pennsylvania and is attending Penn State University. So you see that Serena is a demo of that. She had to pay a little bit more than folks who would be residents of California. And Katie?
Yep. So I was also really lucky. My mom was actually a professor at the university. And so that was kind of like my parents' college plan for a while. That got me tuition for school. But then I also did apply a little bit early to the school. So that made me eligible for some of the scholarship programs. And then I also got a scholarship that helped pay for room and board.
That's awesome. And Katie, thank you for highlighting that. I had a couple friends as well who would attend the university with the help of their parents were professors, and it really, really helps with tuition, you guys. So if you have any parents or, could be into teaching, start pushing them towards that way, something like that, might be a little, if you're still in time, go ahead. Nicole, go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, I'm second generation college, but my family didn't have money to pay for college. And my mom basically told me by any means necessary. So find as many loans or grants that you could, and whatever happens, happens, and you worry about paying it back later, which I am still paying it back. Having said that, in hindsight, I wish I would have known more about early applications and scholarships. I did also take advantage of a work study program, which contributed to my tuition. So that was helpful. And speaking again to the state universities versus out of state, I think if you also have a plan for graduate school, you might want to consider maybe an in-state university instead of a private college like I did, so that I could have extreme amounts of loans to pay back instead of maybe something smaller from my undergraduate degree.
Thanks, Nicole. So now that you guys hear, the 5 different ways that, we pay for college, let's get into all the steps that you should consider before going into college. Again, you guys, there's no guidance on how to pay for college tuition, but I want you guys to just pay a lot of attention to step 1 that I want to highlight here. Step 1 is, you want to look for the free money first. Step 2, then we talk about borrowed money. And then step 3, we talk about work study, picking up a job during college or something to help pay with just the cost of living. And, when I go through the courses, again, these are rough guidances, and we can deep dive into a little bit more into, like, we can have a separate workshop on scholarships, separate workshop on Fafsa as needed, but this is kind of an introductory.
Sorry to interrupt, but can you present your slides? It's very small, they can't see it.
Let's see. Is this? Let's see.
The first option you had was correct.
Is this, would this
Yes,
be right?
that's it.
Okay. I'm trying to see how I can present the screen. I had some notes on the side as well, because I would want to be able to see the notes. Let me see how I can do that on here. Share the screen. Let's see. Sorry, guys, 1 second. Let me see. Okay, let's do it like this. So as I said, with step 1, I want you guys to pay a little bit more attention to like how we want to take advantage of all the free money. And again, this is just kind of a rough guidance on what to do, some steps to consider, so that knowledge is power, right? So, I want to make sure that you guys like have all the information that you need. And as requested, we can have a separate workshop on FAFSA if you like, or a separate workshop on scholarships, and we'll deep dive into that as needed. But these is just some general information that I want you guys to know. After you've exhausted the options in step 1 here, then we'll go, we'll pay a little bit more attention to step 2 on how to consider into the borrowed money, we can talk about federal loans and versus private loans. Federal loans overall is the more preferred option if you have to take a loan. And then step 3, we'll talk about, ways that you can kind of pick up like on-campus jobs. But let's go ahead and get started into the FAFSA. Okay, again, please apply for FAFSA. You guys won't even believe on how many people don't actually even apply for FAFSA, and it only benefits you to apply for this. The FAFSA is used because it's used to evaluate your financial aid package. And a big trick that I want to highlight here is that you can actually haggle with your school for more financial aid. And this is a new trick that I didn't practice myself, but I did hear from colleagues that they did. Contact your financial aid advisor, go to the financial aid office, and see who your advisor is, and explain to them what's going on. You can, maybe you have to write a little bit more of a formal appeal, just re-emphasizing why you're a good fit for the school, but you just need a little bit more help. Or, just do a better job of explaining your financial situations. Maybe the office didn't know that you have other expenses, like, medical bills, they knew they would take that into consideration a little bit more. But again, like the number that the financial aid office gives you is not the final number. You can always haggle for more. That's the main trick that I want to highlight here. Okay. And then the next one that is also free money is scholarships. And scholarships are offered through colleges, states, private orgs, nonprofit organizations, churches even, and they're also offered by the federal government. It does not, and this is money that does not need to be repaid. Each scholarship is its own individual entity, so you need to apply to them separately. And I've listed a few online resources here that you can use to find scholarships that you might be eligible for. And it can be on myscholarlybowl.org, scholarships.com, fastweb.com, careeronestop.org. This careeronestop.org is sponsored by the U.S. Department of Labor. But really any of these 5 are quite reliable. And what you guys want to do is just go on the website, check it out. They're going to ask you to make a profile just to get your age, like your background, etc. If you're doing well in school, and then they'll find scholarships that will match to you. And I checked out these websites just last night. You guys, there's so many scholarships that are listed here. Some of them are even no essays required. So really just take your time and browse through this. And most of the time, these scholarships are about 500 to maybe a couple grand here and there. In the grand scheme of things, that's not much compared to $40,000 a year for college tuition, but no scholarship is too small, okay? Even 1,000 here and there will help. Like nothing is limiting you from getting multiple scholarships. And if you get 10 scholarships, that's a good chunk of the tuition already. So I really want to emphasize that, don't let that deter you away. Is there anything that the panelists would like to add here?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick, Angela. A few things for the scholarships. One is when you're looking for them and you may see, hey, there's an essay involved, the question might look complicated. It might not be 100% towards maybe your own experience, but if you have some relation to it, something you can bring, don't be afraid to apply. Because I think there's a lot of people, a lot of students that look at some of these scholarships and go, oh, there's a big essay, I'm not even going to bother. So you may have an even better chance of getting that if you just put in a little bit of time and do your best to do that. So I highly encourage that. You can get a lot of scholarships outside of the universities as well. Look at your local businesses. A lot of scholarships you can get for things outside of even education. My wife, for example, had applied to a bunch in the area and she got one for poetry. She's in medicine, so that had nothing to do with what she does. But you can find scholarships in a lot of interesting and unique areas. And as Angela said, every dollar counts. So keep looking, look at what's out there. You can call the Enrollment and Financial Aid Office as well to speak to them directly. But there's a lot out there. So, do what you can and every dollar counts.
That's right, Janine. Thanks for re-emphasizing that. And then I want to go over one more, which is my screen is frozen, but I wanted to talk about grants. One second. Okay. Awesome. Okay, grants. So grants is another form of free money, and it's usually evaluated based on your Fafsa. So again, like I said earlier, file your Fafsa, you guys. It looks daunting, but file your Fafsa. It's all where you get the most free money out of it. And again, grants are available through the federal government or state governments, so you need to apply to them separately. And please use the pheaa.org website that I listed here. This one is specific to Pennsylvania state grants to find a list of all PA grants that you may be qualified for. My next question for the panelists is share your experience with applying for Fafsa. And so I can go first. To be honest with you guys, my experience with Fafsa was a nightmare. Again, I was a first-generation student, so I went through the application with my parents, who didn't know any more than I did at the age of 17, 18 at the time anyway. So there was a huge language barrier for me as well. That was another added struggle. I barely understood what loans were. I really didn't know what borrowed money means, what is free money. And I was even scared to put in the wrong letter, misspelled something, or said the wrong income number or something, because I thought the cops were gonna come knocking on my door, seriously. But it was a daunting experience for me, and I really hope that you guys can use this workshop to knowledge is power, and use this workshop to your advantage, and don't be so scared like I did to apply for FAFSA. Let's see, Katie, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so I did apply to colleges that were outside of, the one that my mom was teaching at, just in case. So I did fill out the FAFSA. I just did it alone. I didn't know exactly what I was doing. It wasn't, the easiest thing. It was kind of a pain, like Angela was saying, but it is definitely doable on your own. Yeah.
Thanks, Katie. What about you, Serena?
I think I did pretty much the same thing as Katie. My parents had never done any of that before, and I'm also the eldest in my family, so I was the first kid to go out there and do any of this. So pretty much I went to my parents. I was like, can you give me your tax records? And I just like sat down in front of a computer, spent a few hours like looking stuff up online and like figuring it out. Watched like a couple videos, like stuff like that. There's like, they have like a website that'll explain things and like, you know, like, oh, like this is information you should input here, input there. But pretty much if you, I think that's really all you need is like your parents' tax information. And then they actually have like a tool where if they do have an account through the IRS, you can just like link it directly with like their IRS account or something. And in my like last 3 years of college, I figured out how to do that. And that made things a lot faster because it would just fill it in automatically.
That's right. Now that you mentioned that, Serena, that is true. The first pain is just filing it in the beginning, and it looks so daunting, but I promise you again, in the next, you need to apply to your FAFSA every year. And you know, when you apply to the first year, they'll remember your information for the second year, and it becomes a little bit easier every time. Nicole, anything you want to add?
Honestly, no, because you guys have it really easy. I had a form that was like 4 carbon copies and I had to collect like 10 of them in case I made a mistake. So if I could do it, you guys could definitely do it with the online applications that they have.
Awesome. Okay, now that we talked a little bit about free money and step 1, let's go to step 2 and talk about borrowed money. So let's see. Money borrowed needs to be paid back. Okay, actually, let me go back. Actually, no. Money borrowed needs to be paid back, and the amount that you have to pay back is going to be higher than the amount that you originally asked for. You know, and it's that way. It's so that the lender can make some money off of you, right? That's why they're called loan sharks. The lender will charge you an interest rate, and that's based on the amount that you, and that's a percentage of what you had borrowed, had asked to borrow originally. And because there is an interest rate, it's basically a tax for paying late. Think of it that way. And loans really should be the last option that you guys want to explore when you cannot qualify for more financial aid money or for more scholarships or for more grant money. So, you know, going back to Jimmy's first point, you know, even if it's just an essay, like your effort is going to equate to that money that you win. So, you know, the more effort that you want to put in, the more scholarship money that you can get, and that will help so that you don't have to look into loans. But you know, sometimes loans are needed. So again, like I just have a little math here that I wanted to explain to you guys a little bit. Like, you know, for example, tuition cost is $40,000 a year. Let's say for an average of 5% interest rate, you're going to owe $42,000 after that. And you know, the money owed your first year of graduation is going to be 42, and it only gets higher so and so after that. As you can see, 10 years after graduation, it will accumulate up to 65, which is 25,000 more than what you had asked for. And like, so really that amount will accumulate. And again, you know, if you do have to consider loans, I want you guys to consider federal loans before private loans, because oftentimes federal loans have a lower interest rate. So, you know, like lower than 5% here, around more than 2%. So let's talk about a little bit more on the federal loans then. Like I said, they're offered through the government, and the government is going to be a nicer lender to you since they want to encourage you to go to school. However, there is a max to how much you can borrow from the government. I believe, and that amount is usually evaluated based on your FAFSA application, but probably like the maximum that you can borrow from the government is $12,000 for a year. Again, let's say tuition is $40,000 a year. That's $12,000 off for loans, right? About a quarter off. Federal loans also comes in 2 ways. They can come as direct subsidized or direct unsubsidized. Now, both of them are 2.75% interest rate as of right now, which is pretty low considering, like, you know, again, like what I showed you the math earlier, 5%, and, you know, private lenders can go way more than 5% too. So, you know, 2.75 is pretty low. And again, you guys should consider the direct subsidized on the top here before the bottom unsubsidized, because direct subsidized will allow you to have a 6-month grace period post-graduation before that amount starts accumulating, as opposed to the unsubsidized at the bottom there, it will start accumulating pretty fast. So, you know, like an example would be, like, for example, let's go back to that math. So if the amount borrowed was $40,000 a year with an interest rate of 2.75, with the direct subsidized, that amount starts accruing and adding up 6 months after you graduate. With unsubsidized, that amount starts accruing the minute you tell the government, the minute you sign that you want to take this loan. So, you know, that's including the 4 years that you were in college, et cetera. So just make sure you keep that in mind. And again, this is just really rough information. We can do a separate workshop on loans too, if you guys just want to understand this a little bit more. Those are all my notes for federal loans. Is there anything that the panelists want to add before I move into private loans?
I would just add that this is why it's really important what school you choose, and also knowing what you want to do, because some of these federal loans will they will waive a certain amount after you pay them for a certain amount of time in certain industries or areas. So for instance, teaching, right? Or if you work for the government, you may be able to pay maybe for 5 years and then they'll waive it. So
that's a really good point that you brought up, Nicole, that there is a program where, you know, it's mainly available to, I think, other professions too, but I know I have some friends who became teachers, and, you know, the loans that they took from the government, it was waived, basically forgiven. They don't have to pay it back, if in the condition that my friend teaches at the school that they want them to teach. And, you know, if you want to be a teacher already, I think that's a pretty good deal. Nothing tops that, really, but. Yeah.
right, and even in looking at cost, I just looked up the Uconn in-state tuition for Connecticut, where I'm from, is just under 18,000, and for out of state it's 40,000. So that's pretty significant when you're looking to select a school.
She's right, and you know, like with that let's say you were in state and you paid 18, and you know, let's say that the max that you borrow from the government here was 12. You know, that's a huge chunk off, right? That's like 80% off, like your tuition already, and you know, you don't really have to consider other loans almost for the rest of it. So there's a lot of things to keep in mind when you choose a new school. I will go, let's talk about private loans. So private loans are offered through the bank and other, also other private lenders like family and friends. You know, with family and friends, the details can be sorted out more internally. So, you know, whatever goes. But usually with the bank, the interest rate is most likely around 5 to 10%. And that, again, that the interest rate begins actively when you sign the loan. So it will start accruing when the loan is active. It's important to remember here that even though you're asking to borrow money, you can be rejected for the loan if the bank feels like you are not credible or do not have enough credit requirements. So, you know, it's not like you can just, you know, oh, I maxed out all my federal loans, like now I'm gonna go and talk to a bank for the rest. Like, yes, you can, but there are also some requirements that the bank may need from you. So you may not even be able to get those loans. And, you know, again, you're gonna be under 18 when you are going to the bank and asking for this loan. So keep in mind that I'm assuming that, you know, you're 18, you haven't worked that much, so you don't have a lot of credit requirements. So you're going to need a cosigner to help you cosign this loan. And basically what that means is, you know, if at any point later down the line, you cannot pay the loan back to the bank. This cosigner is then responsible to pay the bank back. Okay, so again, we'll resort to private student loans as like the last option here. You guys, have already maxed out the federal loans. And again, family and friends, that's always more helpful. Anything that the panelist wants to add to private student loans? Cool, okay, so let's see, I will move into step 3. Oh, sorry, I threw a question in here and I forgot. So how long will it take you to repay all your loans? Okay, so I can go first. I got a full ride, so that helped a lot with tuition. However, I still had room and board. Books are expensive, you guys. They're not cheap. And you got to buy new books every semester. So that's twice a year, could be 3 times a year, depending on the school you go to. So it's gonna add up. And again, I'm in college, I'm living life too. So, I need a little bit of spending money. And so, with I did end up taking out some loans from the government and also some my first year I did private loans. And after that first year, I never did it again. Okay. I found all other ways to fund my college tuition so that I don't have to go to the bank and do it again. Because again, I think the interest rate that they gave me at the time was like 7, almost 8%, which is like really high, you guys. But because I made that decision, it helped a lot later down the line. I only owed that amount that I asked for on my first year. So, I didn't ask again my year 2, 3, or 4 at Tulane. And it took me about 6 months to then repay all those loans. And then, after that, then I was able to then start with my emergency fund. But, it's like, it took me about 6 months or almost a year to pay off those loans. And I only borrowed like 20,000, loan. I don't know, people borrow more than that. My stepdad went to Drexel University actually, and he financed a lot of it through private loans. And let me tell you, he's still paying it. He's like almost 50 right now. He's still paying for it. Okay, so again, loans is the last thing. Private loans is the last thing that you want. Anything the panelist wants to add?
So as I mentioned earlier, I went to a private undergrad, which is more expensive. And then I went to a private graduate school, which was more expensive. And all of that built on the philosophy of just worry about it later. And it is much later, and I'm still paying it. And I will be paying it as of yesterday until 2045 is what I found out. And quite honestly, I'm definitely taking a little bit more of a slow route because there's different methods that you can use to pay it back. There's graduated payments, which means they start small, but then they balloon towards the end. There's income sensitive payments, which will not exceed 4% of your monthly income. And there's other types of payments that you can take advantage of. I figure if I have to pay this for most of my life, I might as well take the least amount of monthly payments, as I have a family to support. But I also was lucky enough to get into a career which affords me the ability to pay back the loans, because there's definitely a time frame when the economy took a downturn when I had to pause them for hardship because I couldn't afford it.
No, it's true. And, I think into Nicole's point, there's various methods on how to repay all your loans back, depending on the amount, et cetera, do what's best for you.
So I joke now and I say it was my first house, basically, is what my education cost.
I know what you mean. Jimmy, Katie, Serena, anything?
I can add. So I have a combination of federal and private loans that I took out for school. And basically what happened after I graduated was I refinanced the private loans. And so I was actually able to get a significantly lower rate and also release my parents as co-signers. So it was no longer affecting their credit. And part of that is because of the pandemic. So just because of timing of when I graduated, I think I got a lower interest rate. So I'll be paying off those loans in 10 years. And then for like my federal loans, like I think that's probably also going to be like 10 or 15 years. But yeah, I think like what everyone else said, like I maxed out on as much like grant money and scholarship money I could get. So I have like some loans, but it's like not too much. So it's like doable. I can pay it off in 10 years. But if you're paying for a lot of school with like mainly loans, it is a commitment. And I think that's always a good thing to like kind of warn everyone about. Because I think when I like went to college, I like didn't even think about it because I was like, oh, I just need to pay for school. But then afterwards, I'm like, oh, like even if it was only like a fraction of my cost that I took out in loans, it does take a while. So not trying to scare anyone, but I think it's a good thing to keep in mind.
That's good that you highlighted that, Serena. And, I want to go back to my first workshop originally where I talk about if college is the right decision for you. And of course, I will always tell you 10 out of 10 times that I encourage college education for everybody. But, again, college is a commitment. It's a financial commitment, and it's how much you make out of it, right? I have friends who went to college and, they just don't remember any of the 4 years that they did there. And, it's really the education value is not worth it, right? So, when it's a financial commitment like this, I hope that it gives you more motivation to, get your money's worth, go to classes, really like become someone like later down the line, etc. So that get your money's worth and go to the lectures because it's a big financial commitment. And then I will move on to the last one, which is on work study. And again, this is, I say this as the last one because it's not a significant amount that you would be making from work study. Work study is offered through the school and that you get admitted to. So when I went to Tulane gave me some work study money. I said this, it was the cherry on top because the amount of money earned here is not that significant. It's just to help lower, just to help with your room and board or books or cost of living, etc. Again, any small amount is going to help you. Okay, so work study provides students with part-time employment while you're studying, and oftentimes it's going to be a campus job. The income that you get from that would be about the same as you just went to work at a restaurant outside of campus. The income is hourly wages, and it can be paid by the school. Even if you don't qualify for work study, there is nothing stopping you from going outside and getting an extra job just to pay for that. And let's see. Do you have a job on campus? Yes, I do, actually. I had several weird, odd campus jobs. I was studying science at Tulane University, so I picked a job in campus researching in the lab. So I did that for a little bit. I was a librarian for a little bit as well. If you wanted to borrow books, you come to me and I'll scan them, and then you can be on your merry way. If you want to return books, give it to me too. I was doing that. I also tutored for football athletes in math. And then I also was just doing some desk receptionist stuff. Like they have all kinds of jobs available, you guys. So, the more that you want to give to it, there's no limit. And I will say that you don't have to get an on-campus job, but I found it really rewarding, and it was good for me to make my own money because, even though my parents helped with the majority of my room and board, it was still nice to have extra money on the side to buy coffee, or, to add guac to my salad, or, just like for the bar, etc. So, I highly encourage getting a campus job. Anything that the panelist wants to add?
I can jump in.
Oh, go ahead, Katie.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Jimmy. Yeah, I actually had some jobs on campus as well. My freshman year, I started at the coffee shop. And then from there, I also applied to be an RA. So I was an RA for my sophomore, junior, and senior years. And that was actually really, really great. I know a lot of people who were also doing that to help with room and board, because that was a really great way to help with that. And then my senior year, I also was working at the library briefly just kind of in a reception job, but I do really highly recommend. Oh, sorry. One other thing, I also did research on campus. So I did 2 summers of research, and then those were paid. It was kind of like a job for 10 weeks, I think. So that was another good way to make some money in college. But I do really highly recommend getting a job. I didn't particularly need it per se, but I do think it was really great just to get work experience and to, make my own money, and also to just get just to meet people. It was like really good for that. So
Thanks, Katie. And, Katie highlighted something that I wanted to add. If you become an RA, which is basically, how do I explain this? So when you go to college, usually in your first year, the school will require you to live on campus in dorms. And so that's why I say room and board is an extra cost. And if you become an RA, it's basically every floor in your dorm room, there's one designated person that is responsible to keep the floor clean, keep making sure that the floor is being civilized. If there are any issues on the floor, this person reports the issue to the school, etc. So if you become an RA, you would basically get room and board for free. So imagine, you did so well in school that you got tuition off, and then you did then you apply to be an RA and you got it. That's basically majority of your costs already off the table right there. So if that's a route that you want to choose, I highly encourage it. Jimmy, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, sure. One other point I'll add too is, besides the obvious benefit of getting extra money when you do these jobs, when you go to your eventual career, employers actually look really positively on people who had the work ethic to not only study, but also work at the same time. I was involved in some recruiting in one of my past jobs, and that was a big plus. So that's really good for you guys to do. I worked at the library as well. There's a benefit of not only do you work and get paid while you're on campus, but you get to study on the off time when it's not busy. You can, do your homework, study for class. I did some tutoring as well on the side. And one other way to get some easy money while you're on campus is, especially the big universities, they have a lot of big research projects that everybody else was kind of mentioning. And you can be a participant in those, and maybe filling out a quick survey, doing a small activity. And they usually give anywhere, from $10 to $100 of gift cards, or, things, gift cards to restaurants, visas, stuff like that. So some other cool ways you can make some extra money there.
Thanks, Jimmy, for highlighting the job part, because I think you're very correct in that. It's really hard to build up your resume when you've only been going to school the last 22 years of your life, right? You haven't really worked or anything. So this is campus jobs is a great way to add that onto your resume, so that when you apply to jobs later down the line, it just doesn't look like you didn't do anything the last 22 years of your life.
I'll also add that there's other jobs. Like I had friends who worked in security, which was really interesting, or worked in the cafeteria, which meant you could get extra food. I started working in media services, where we just basically set up media equipment when people needed it, which doesn't take a whole lot of effort. And then the other job I elected to do was to work in the gym. And for some reason, there was never a lot of people in there. So to Jimmy's point, I would either do my homework or I would just work out. So it was a win-win for me.
She's right. Yeah. When I was a librarian, the library is not that busy all the time. They're only busy around test season. So, a lot of the times I would be doing my homework while on the job. So, think of it as, you're doing your homework and you get paid a little bit too, here and there. I will open the floor for.
I was gonna add one more
Go
thing
ahead.
about the jobs. So I did work study and also jobs off campus, but this is obviously very school dependent advice. But at my school, I was able to be hired as a TA as an undergrad. So I was basically hired as a graduate student instructor. And through that, I was also able to get tuition remission, because I was basically a grad student, TAing a class. And so but I went to a large public university where I think it's more common for that to happen. But that was a really great opportunity, because I got thousands of dollars off of my tuition by doing that.
That's a really good trick, Serena. Thanks for voicing that.
Oh, and as a resident assistant, I don't know if anyone else had this experience, because I did that as well. We got better rooms. Like I had a single room with
Yes.
my own private bathroom.
Yes.
It was so much better.
RAs get their own rooms, you guys. And so you don't have to share. I will open the floor for any open Q&A that students may have. Rosaline, is there any questions that the students may have? What about you, Shangju? Oh no, I think he left her. If there are no questions, oh, hey.
Do the jobs on campus like pay more or like compared to like outside jobs?
I'll be honest with you, no. I think that if if I got a job outside just working at a restaurant, I would probably make a lot more money in tips and like that. The rate that they gave me was, and I was living in the South, you guys. So this is Louisiana. I think minimum wage in Louisiana was like $8 or maybe like even $7. So I think that was the hourly wage that they gave me. So I couldn't. So that's it's so again, that's why I said it's just a cherry on top. It's a very small amount. Not going to be a huge cutoff into your tuition or anything, but it will help with spending money. And for, if I like the campus job because again, like what Jimmy said, when I was a librarian, I would do my homework. I can't do that when I'm working at a restaurant. Or jobs where they're seriously paying a lot more, right? So there's a little bit of an advantage there.
Yeah, and something I'll quickly add to that too, on-campus jobs, it's a lot closer for you. I don't think you may think about if you have to go far off campus,
Yes.
take a bus, there's all that time and time is
Yes.
super valuable to you. So keep that in mind as well.
And when we did campus jobs, you would I would do it between classes. That was the best part. So like I can have, let's say, like I can have an 8 a.m. and then I have a break from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. until I have class again. You can't like go work at a restaurant during those 4 hours. Nobody like wants to give you those shifts, like what I mean? Or most other jobs, like no one's gonna give you those like odd shifts like that. So with a campus job, you can just like sign up for like whatever hours work for you. There's a lot more flexibility, but that's why they pay you so little, right? There's so much flexibility for you as a student. Thanks for asking a question. I'll take any other ones if you guys have any.
Like, was there something that you wish you could have done differently, like throughout like the process?
Throughout the college application process or just the financial aid part?
I guess both.
Let's see. I wish I never took out that private loan that I told you guys earlier. That was a nightmare. So I realized that after year one and I never did it again. And I had some debt that I had to pay right after college because of that year one and donezo. But if I can do it again, I wish I never even took it.
For me, I would say I wish I knew more about the grants and scholarships and could have taken advantage of that. And knowing that I wanted to go to law school, I wish I would have gone to an in-state school instead of a private out-of-state school. That would have significantly decreased my costs, and I probably would have my loans paid off by now.
Cool, awesome. I'll take any last minute questions. If not, we can give back everybody a little bit of time. Thanks again for coming, all the volunteers. I appreciate you guys coming to help. And I appreciate the students for coming to listen as well. I hope that you guys find this workshop helpful. And I hope that, this is, again, just a little bit of information to start exposing you so that it doesn't hit you in the face like it did me. And then I had to file Fafsa like in fear. So that's like the number one thing that I want you guys to take away from this. Thank you, everyone.
Good luck.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Bye.